The final whistle blew at the Parc des Princes and the scoreboard told a story that Chelsea fans will find very difficult to look at. 5-2, Paris Saint-Germain over Chelsea, a result that has left this club standing on the edge of Champions League elimination before the second leg has even been played. But here is what makes this so painful, so deeply frustrating. For 75 minutes of that match, Chelsea were right in it, not just surviving, not just hanging on. They were genuinely in the tie. They had matched Paris Saint-Germain goal for goal, moment for moment, and the belief inside that stadium from the Chelsea players was real. You could feel it in how they played. You could see it in the chances they created. Then the game changed in the most brutal and costly way imaginable, and 15 minutes of chaos undid everything that 75 minutes of real quality had built. It is now clear that this was not simply a case of a better team winning comfortably. The reality for Chelsea is far more complicated than that and far more painful, because they were there. They were genuinely, truly right there in this tie, and then they were not. What you are about to hear is a complete breakdown of everything that happened on that night in Paris. The goals, the errors, the flashpoints, the chaos, and the brutal implications for what comes next. This is the full picture. I am Maya, and this is Maya on Chelsea. Let us get into it. The stakes, before we go any deeper, let us be completely clear about what was at stake in Paris and what is now at stake going into the second leg. Chelsea travelled to the Parc des Princes for the first leg of a Champions League round of 16 tie. This competition at this stage represents one of the biggest opportunities this club has had in recent seasons. Getting through to the quarter-finals of the Champions League is not just a football achievement, it is a statement. It is proof of genuine European quality. The situation is now extraordinarily difficult. Chelsea must overcome a 3-goal deficit at Stamford Bridge next Tuesday to stay in this competition. That is the mathematical reality. 3 goals against Paris Saint-Germain, the European champions at home, yes, but the margin that must be overturned is one of the most severe you can face in a 2-legged European tie. And the reason it got to this point is something that Rosén himself has been clear and honest about. He has not deflected, he has not made excuses, he has looked directly at what happened and placed the responsibility firmly at the door of his own dugout. That honesty matters, and we are going to examine exactly what went wrong, step by step. But first, if you want this level of analysis on every Chelsea story, every press conference, every injury update, every tactical breakdown, then hit that subscribe button right now. Maya on Chelsea exists to give you the full picture, not just the headlines. Subscribe and you will never miss a story that matters. Now, let us talk about what actually happened in Paris. Deep dive, the match itself. For the opening stages of this game, Chelsea did something that very few teams in European football have managed to do successfully against Paris Saint-Germain this season. They competed, properly competed, they matched the press, they played through it, they created chances and they scored goals. Malo Gusto scored for Chelsea, Enzo Fernandez scored for Chelsea. Those 2 moments brought the tie level at 2 goals apiece. And at that point, midway through this match, the away end at the Parc des Princes was electric. Chelsea fans had every right to believe that their team was about to do something remarkable. Paris Saint-Germain had also scored twice through Bradley Barcola and Ousmane Dembélé. So the tie was alive, balanced and moving in a direction that gave Chelsea real hope. The evidence suggests that Chelsea's approach to the game was tactically sound for the majority of the 90 minutes. Rosén set his team up to play through pressure, to remain calm in possession and to use their build-up play to expose the space that Paris Saint-Germain can leave when they press high. And for 3/4 of the match, it worked. Here is where the story turns. The 74th minute. The scoreline reads 2-2. Chelsea are not just level. According to Rosén himself, they were, in his words, in the ascendancy at that point. They were pushing. They were close to creating moments that could have put them ahead. Then came Jørgensen's mistake. The goalkeeper made a costly error that allowed Vitinha to capitalise. Vitinha, the composed and technically gifted Paris Saint-Germain midfielder, calmly lofted the ball over the stranded Jørgensen and put the French side ahead at 3-2. 1 moment, 1 mistake, and the entire momentum of the match shifted in an instant. Now, it is important to be fair here. Goalkeepers make mistakes. That is an uncomfortable truth in football, but it is a truth nonetheless. Rosén himself was direct about this after the game. He said that players make mistakes, that Philipp is not the first goalkeeper to do so, and that it is simply part of football. He also said that Jørgensen held his hands up in the dressing room, which shows character. But the reality for the club is that the timing of this particular error was as damaging as it gets. 2-2, momentum building, and then suddenly 3-2 against, away from home in a Champions League tie. The psychological weight of that shift was enormous, and Chelsea could not handle it. The collapse, what followed in those final 15 to 20 minutes, is something that Rosén described as, in his words, crazy in many aspects. And that is not an exaggeration. Paris Saint-Germain scored twice more. Kvara, who came on as a substitute, scored 2 goals late in the game. The final scoreline became 5-2. Kvaratskhelia first goal, the 4th of the night for Paris, has been described by Rosén as an absolutely unbelievable strike. He said directly that no goalkeeper in the world saves it. That is important context, because it means not every goal Chelsea conceded in that collapse was avoidable. Some of it was simply a world-class team at their very best. But the 5th goal, the one that made the aggregate deficit 3 goals instead of 2, that one Rosén has identified as the most painful of all. Not because of how it was scored, but because of what it represented. Chelsea did not settle themselves down. They did not manage the moment. They did not maintain the basic defensive discipline needed to prevent it. Rosén's analysis of the 5th goal is honest and clear. He acknowledged that Chelsea failed to deal with a basic pattern of play, and as a result, Paris were able to add a 5th, and that 5th goal is the one that has made this tie, in his own words, very, very difficult. There is a crucial distinction here that the manager himself made. At 4-2, he genuinely believed Chelsea was still in the tie because of the quality of chances they were creating, because of the moments they were generating from their possession play. At 4-2, a miraculous but not impossible comeback at Stamford Bridge was still conceivable. At 5-2, the mathematics are brutal. The second leg must now be one of the greatest comebacks this club has produced in modern European football. And that is the consequence of 20 minutes of collapse after 75 minutes of genuine quality. The Jørgensen question. There is an important subplot running through everything that happened on this night, and it centres on the goalkeeper situation at Chelsea. Rosén has 2 goalkeepers competing for this role, Philip Jørgensen and Robert Sanchez. He addressed this directly after the match, and what he said is worth analysing carefully. His reasoning for selecting Jørgensen for this game was tactical. He pointed to the 4-1 win over Aston Villa as evidence that Jørgensen's ability to remain calm in possession, to play through the press, contributed directly to that result. He felt that against a high-pressing Paris Saint-Germain side, having a goalkeeper who could play through the initial pressure was the right decision. It is now clear that the logic of that decision was sound for the majority of the game. Chelsea did play through the press successfully for long periods. The build-up play worked, the approach worked, until the moment it did not. Rosén acknowledged the difficulty of the situation. He described Robert Sanchez as outstanding from crosses and an outstanding shot stopper. He was clear that both goalkeepers have different qualities and that he is trying to win in both the short term and the long term. The situation is that this is now one of the most important decisions Rosén faces before the second leg next week. Whatever he decides, he will have reasons, and whatever he decides, it will be scrutinised intensely. The ball boy incident, no full breakdown of this evening is complete without addressing the incident involving Pedro Neto and the ball boy at the Parc des Princes. Here is exactly what happened. With Chelsea trailing 4-2, Neto rushed to retrieve the ball near the Paris Saint-Germain dugout. The ball boy hesitated and did not immediately release it. Neto, in the heat of the moment, pushed the ball boy. The ball boy fell. What followed was a brawl. Paris Saint-Germain players moved in to intervene. Reece James and Pedro Neto were involved in the confrontation on the Chelsea side. Marquinhos and Enzo Fernandez were also engaged in physical confrontation before the referee, Alejandro Hernandez, stepped in, restored order and spoke to both captains. Now, here is something important. VAR reviewed the incident involving Neto and the push on the ball boy. The decision was made not to show a red card. Neto avoided a booking entirely for the push, despite the fact that the ball boy's actions in holding the ball away from him were also reviewed. After the match, Neto spoke directly about this, and to his credit, he was completely clear and completely honest. He admitted it was wrong. He said he had already spoken to the ball boy during the match itself. He gave the ball boy his shirt. He said he apologised approximately 35 times. He said it cannot happen and that he is really, truly sorry. He also revealed something that gives a small amount of colour to how the evening ended. He said that Vitinha, the Paris Saint-Germain midfielder, had spoken to the ball boy as well, telling him that Neto is not like that. And he said the ball boy came to speak to him at the end of the match and was happy, partly because of the shirt. Rosén was also asked about this incident in his post-match press conference. He said he had not watched it back at the time of speaking. He acknowledged that if anything from Chelsea's side was wrong or out of order, He apologises on behalf of the club. But he was also clear that he was not going to spend significant time on this issue because of how much genuine quality Chelsea showed in other moments of the game. The reality for Chelsea is that emotions ran extremely high in those final minutes. That does not excuse a player pushing a ball. Boy, Neto knows that, and he said so clearly and directly. But in the context of a match where so much was at stake and where Chelsea felt they were still fighting, the emotions that were boiling over in that moment are understandable, even if the action itself was unacceptable. The press conference and Rosén's accountability. One of the most significant things about this entire situation is how Liam Rosén handled himself after the match. And it is worth spending real time on this because it tells us something important about this manager. He did not hide behind the scoreline. He did not point at Jørgensen's error as the reason everything fell apart. He did not deflect onto referee decisions or the quality of Paris Saint-Germain's squad, even though he acknowledged both of those things. What he did was take direct personal responsibility. He said, in his own words, that the collapse in those final 15 to 20 minutes is on him. He described it as something he has spoken about since his very first day in the job. He talked about reacting positively in difficult moments, staying calm under pressure, managing setbacks, and he acknowledged that when it mattered most in Paris, that aspect of the team's mentality failed. He said that is why it is his responsibility to find the answer. The evidence suggests this is a manager who is genuinely wrestling with a specific and identified problem. This is not a team that lacks quality. Rosén himself has said they are very close to being an outstanding team, but there is a gap between performing at a high level for long periods and maintaining that level when a setback hits. He also pointed to something that deserves analysis. He mentioned Jão Pedro's disallowed goal, which would have made the score 3-3. He described it as an inch offside, a matter of millimetres. He acknowledged that the correct decision was made by the officials, but he used that moment to illustrate just how fine the margins were. Had that goal stood, the story of the final 20 minutes might have been completely different. Instead, it was disallowed, and moments later, Paris scored their fourth. That is football at the highest level. That is the Champions League. And Chelsea found out painfully just how unforgiving it can be. Rosén also addressed something that emerged before the match. Reports suggest that Chelsea's starting lineup was leaked in the French media before kickoff. He said he was not aware of this at the time of his press conference, but acknowledged these things happen in modern football. He said he is more focused on the end result than the beginning of the game, which tells you exactly where his mind is at. The injury picture and what comes next before the second leg. Next Tuesday, Chelsea have a Premier League match against Newcastle on Saturday, the 14th of March. And Rosén may be in a position to welcome back some important players for that game. Estevão and Gittens, the 18-year-old Brazilian winger, has been absent for 5 matches with a hamstring injury. He has been stepping up his recovery and has been back on the pitch in training. Rosén described him as not quite ready for the most recent match, but said he just needs to clear a few more markers. The return date suggested for Estevão is the Newcastle match on Saturday, the 14th of March. This is significant. Estevão is a player who brings energy, directness and creativity from wide areas. Having him available as Chelsea try to rebuild their momentum going into the second leg would be a genuine boost. Jão Gittens, the former Borussia Dortmund winger who joined Chelsea, is also approaching a return. He received positive scan results recently. Rosén said he had a really positive scan and that the hope was he could be back training with the group within the next 7 days or so from when that statement was made. His return date is also suggested as the Newcastle match on Saturday, the 14th of March. Then there is Levi Colwill. The defender has not played a single minute of football this season. He suffered an anterior cruciate ligament injury on the eve of the current campaign, underwent surgery in August and has been in long-term rehabilitation ever since. Rosén has been measured and careful in how he talks about Colwill's progress. He said in late January that a return before the end of the season is possible, but that he does not want to make promises he cannot keep. At the end of February, he described Colwill as doing really well with his long-term rehabilitation. The projected return date for Colwill is April or May. So the full injury picture looks like this. Colwill remains on the longest road and will not be a factor in the immediate run of games, as Estevão and Gittens are both close and may be available as early as Saturday. That matters enormously because Chelsea need quality and depth across the squad as they try to navigate both a Premier League run and the virtually impossible task of overturning a 3-goal deficit in the Champions League second leg. The second leg reality. It is now clear that Chelsea face one of the most daunting challenges a team can face in a 2-legged European knockout tie. 3 goals down at home against the European champions, needing to score at least 4 goals while keeping Paris Saint-Germain from scoring. Rosén has not given up. He has made that point explicit. He said that even at 4 goals to 2, he believed Chelsea were still in the tie because of the quality of the chances they were creating. His belief in this group of players is genuine and it is clearly communicated. But the reality for the club is that the mathematics require a miraculous performance, not just a good performance, a historically significant one. What makes it conceivable at all is the fact that for 75 minutes in Paris, Chelsea matched a team many consider to be among the 2 or 3 best sides in European football right now. They scored twice, they created chances, they had moments where they were genuinely the better team. Rosén himself described Paris Saint-Germain's squad with real respect. He pointed to Ousmane Dembélé, Desire Doué, Kvaratskhelia, Vitinha and João Neves as examples of a group that you simply do not face in the Premier League on a regular basis. His acknowledgement of their quality is honest and grounded, but he also used that acknowledgement to underline his frustration. Because if Chelsea could compete with that squad for 75 minutes, and they clearly could, then the collapse in the final 15 should not have happened. That is the central tension that Rosén is working to resolve. The bigger picture for Chelsea. Stepping back from the immediate pain of the Paris result, there is a broader picture worth understanding. Chelsea under Rosén are clearly building something with genuine potential. The manager has been consistent in his messaging from the very first day he arrived. He talks about process, about calm under pressure, about the identity he wants this team to have. The evidence from this match suggests the foundations are being laid. The build-up play worked against one of the best pressing teams in Europe. The attacking threat was real. The goal-scoring moments showed quality and composure, but the mental and tactical discipline required to close out moments of pressure at the very highest level is still something this squad is developing. Rosén has identified it clearly. He has been working on it since day one. And on this particular night in Paris, it cost Chelsea an enormous amount. The club now has 2 days to prepare for Newcastle before turning their full attention to the second leg. The players who are returning from injury could provide a significant lift, and the reception at Stamford Bridge for a European night has historically been one of the most powerful forces in this competition. The situation is difficult, the mathematics are severe, but this Chelsea team showed enough in Paris to suggest they are not simply going to accept the result and move on. Whether that matters in the second leg remains to be seen. What is certain is that this group, this manager and this club are being tested at exactly the level they need to be tested at to find out what they are genuinely made of. This is Maya on Chelsea. If this breakdown gave you the full picture you were looking for, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below with your honest take. Can Chelsea turn this tie around at Stamford Bridge? I want to hear from you. Stay with me for more analysis as this story develops.